the primitive forms of artificial intelligence we already have proved very useful.
AI is a golden opportunity.
How do we ensure that this technology is regulated?
The long arc of technological history is now in an extraordinary new phase.
The AI6 podcast with Joanne Sweeney.
Joost Postma, you are very welcome to the AI6 podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we came across each other on LinkedIn. It's a wonderful platform to have conversations about AI, but your particular hook interested me. But before we get into it, introduce yourself to the listeners and to the viewers.
Okay, hi. Well, I'm Joost. I currently work as a level 1 tech support business support agent, and I've been in this in this working environment like for 25 years now. And my AI journey, let's say, started when I first came across DALL-E. I was immediately completely taken over and baffled by the fact that you could just say what you wanted to see and it would just generate it. I mean, the first image I generated was an AT-AT, the robot from Star Wars walking down Manhattan. And I was just sitting there, and then you see the pixels, and it becomes more clear. And then eventually, you had what I told it to make. I was blown away, and so that's how it started. I spent about 2.5 years or something on just text to image generation, and eventually that led me to using LLMs, but mainly as a tool to help me generate better prompts, because let's face it, ChatGPT could write a lot better than I ever could. And so that evolved into that. But by, say, February last year, I started using LLMs more for their own sake and started exploring. And so eventually I realized this tool can do so much more than I thought it could. And I also started noticing that more and more people at work are starting to use these tools, but don't really have any idea on how to use them and what to use them for. So I started developing a training framework for use of LLMs within the corporate environment, let's say. And that spun out of control into an entire ISO-aligned implementation, governance implementation. In that process, obviously, you start following the news about what the implications of AR is, and that's how I came to where we are now. What we're discussing, the job displacement kind of factor that comes in.
Yeah, let's get to that. I know when I'm in rooms and on Zoom rooms, I can feel that fear. It's palpable. Somebody actually said to me earlier this month, but if we work in government sector, we can actually slow the speed of AI adoption down. And many people in the room agreed with that sentiment because people are afraid of getting displaced. And you're so taken by this reality of AI that you've started to pen it in a book. So what's your own personal view on job displacement? Because you and I are knowledge workers, right? We're at the front line of displacement.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, knowledge workers are basically, the first, it's AI it's knowledge. It's based on knowledge, and so the more advanced it gets, the more of the work that a human used to do and used to be specialized in because they had to use their brains for it is going to be doable by AI. So it seems natural that a corporation which is there to make money would realize this and see that, we're now in the stages where AI is used mostly as an augmentation of the current workforce, right? People with AI able to create more quickly, more accurately in a shorter amount of time, which is what I refer to as compression, in the sense that, if I have 2 people with AI that can do the work of a group of 10 people, do I really still need 10 people? Which is, from the corporation's point of view, a very logical conclusion to come to. If I can pay 2 people and the subscription for ChatGPT instead of paying 10 people, I can't explain this to my shareholders if I don't. So that's how I came to think of it. And well, that means me as a first line support engineer, password reset, that can be handled by a bot quite easily, I should say. And so on. The majority of work that a customer support agent would do, tracking an order for a client, there's a bot for that. My hardware doesn't work correctly. Well, initial troubleshooting for 75%, at least in my opinion, could be handled by an LLM, which is sufficiently trained on the customer or the enterprise hardware in question to handle at least 75% of the initial calls. So, yeah, well, that made me think, okay, well, looks like I'm going to have to start looking for a new job in a reasonably short time frame.
So we're governed under the EU AI Act, which is one of the most stringent pieces of legislation around artificial intelligence in the world. Do you think that that's going to provide a safeguard and maybe slow down or prevent total job displacement?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I don't know, have you heard about the digital omnibus that just got announced by the European Commission?
They've pushed it out.
It depends a bit whether or not and in how far that gets ratified by Council and the European Parliament. But right now, as it looks to me like a complete gutting of whatever it was, EU AI Act and GDPR, which basically means the American standard will creep into the European market. And with that, everything that follows, as in the use of AI for more advanced or more, how'd you say, not advanced, but what is called dangerous applications in the EU AI Act. Things like using it during for HR purposes. Hiring and firing people, using it for decisions on who gets to have a loan from a bank or not. Well, if you're going to gut the EU AI Act, which is there and was intended to protect people from these kind of practices, then it's a bit in the wind right now. It depends.
And I guess the argument for that is that such strict legislation really hampers innovation, and Europe is already behind the US and China.
And that's indeed the main argument that the Commission is handling right now. It's too much red tape and we're restricting creativity and innovation because they have to adhere to all these strict rules. I can agree to a certain point with that, obviously, because yes, they're by having to adhere to certain stricter rules, it becomes more difficult to innovate and to to train data, to use training data far more freely in order to get better model and all that. The thing is, me personally, I'm quite fond of GDPR and the fact that not just anybody can take my data and do with it what they wish. I'm sure I'm not the only one with that. And I'm not sure personally if I want to just hand over that kind of freedom to an American corporation that can do with it what they want. There's just very recently, there's now a lawsuit in California. I happened across my timeline yesterday, I think. There's a company that has been scraping the internet and then scoring job applicants' qualifications against, well, the job requirements from these companies. But this was all completely untransparent in the sense that the applicants did not know this was happening. And they're now suing this company because they're using a law out of the 1980s somewhere in the hopes that they can stop these practices. And I saw that and I was like, yeah, that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we need the EU and that. because I don't want to be not given the chance to apply for a job without even knowing the fact that, well, this is because you posted XYZ on Facebook 25 years ago.
And let's talk about the pivot, which is the name of the book that you're writing. And is the pivot that we all need to pivot in the age of AI so that we remain relevant in our industries in some way?
It goes a bit further than that, I'm afraid. In my opinion, the pivot, well, I wrote the pivot basically because, well, from what I see coming, it's already in the States, it's already happening. More and more people get displaced. It's no longer just fired and they find a new job. It's their job just doesn't exist anymore. Like, say, for example, a help desk agent. Well, he'll get fired, and it used to be you get fired because the company gets smaller or whatever, revenue is not what it's supposed to be. You need to make cuts. Okay, you go to another help desk and you start working there. No, because that other help desk is doing the same thing. How I approached this basically was, okay, I know this is coming because, or at least I personally believe this is coming. I'm not saying it's one of the things I mentioned in the book as well. This is an asymmetrical bet I'm making. Either I prepare and I'm wrong in my assumption that this wave of job displacements is coming. So, okay, I prepared and nothing happens. And then I'm like, yeah, but what if I don't prepare, but it does come? So in my opinion, preparation trumps. I mean, it wins against not preparing. So I started looking at, okay, what can I do in order to be able to prepare as long as possible while I'm still employed, while I'm still doing this knowledge work that I've been gaining, in my case, 25 years of experience to get to the level where I am now. How can I maintain my value for the company as long as possible while they're already downsizing? Because, well, the amount of people needed just becomes less and less. That's the first part of it. But that's you can do by, for example, getting more knowledgeable about how to use AI. But these are all temporary measures, because eventually AI is going to get to a level where humans, or at least the amount of humans we have now, is just not required anymore. So I started looking into what I would call AI-resistant jobs, as in what kind of jobs within the foreseeable future do I not see being replaced by AI or embodied AI like robotics. And then we come to jobs like the trades and how to pivot into a trades job, or, for example, jobs where human interaction is basically required, like, healthcare or care for the elderly, which is going to become more and more important as, well, the boomer generation is starting to retire and getting older. And let's say they were the last large generation. I mean, after the boomers, there's generations in how do you call it, in group size, let's call it, became smaller and smaller. So eventually there's going to be a large percentage of our population that's going to be, well, aging, to the extent where they're going to be aging where they're going to need care, but there's less and less people to care for them. So that's going to be a growing market segment where humans will still be required, as opposed to knowledge workers where the AI will just have taken over everything. So I'm looking for these kinds of jobs, and how can I, while I am still employed, start the process of pivoting into that direction.
There's potentially a third cohort of people who might create their own job and become AI tech entrepreneurs. So subject matter experts in specific industries who are knowledge workers, who identify opportunities where AI can absolutely replace them, but it creates a new product. Albeit that might be a small percentage of people, right? Because not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur.
Not only that. I mean, if everybody decides they're going to be an entrepreneur, there's, well, not going to be much of a market left either. So, but yes, This is the part that I discuss as being the AI handle, really. I mean, and that can go indeed, like you say, into entrepreneurship, as in building a business around AI, or the governance part, for example. There's still going to be, for the foreseeable future at least, a need for people that oversee what AI is actually doing. But again, this is a smaller group because, well, you don't need a lot of people. You need people to do that, but not the kind of people that are going to be displaced.
And you've got some practical advice for workers who fear that their jobs will no longer exist because of AI, and you call it stealth certification stacking. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it comes down to very simply that in your current employment, there are certain positions that, at least in Belgium, I don't know exactly for Europe, but I'm assuming, given that it's all under the same European government kind of system, it will be reasonably similar. That, I mean, there are positions that need to be filled, as in you have to have so many people trained in CPR in case somebody gets a heart attack. I'm saying some examples. Or there need to be people that are responsible during fire drills. All of these certifications, the company they won't pay you for it, but I mean they will on the company dime allow you to do trainings like that. These certifications that you would get with that are going to be valuable if you're considering pivoting into the security services. How do you call them? The emergency services. That's the word. For example, if you are going to consider, I will pivot into, let's say, nursing in a hospital situation. Well, the fact that you have already done first aid courses and are certified with that during your employment will give you a step forward on the people that haven't.
And you're also warning against the approach of wait and see, because I meet a lot of people who are just saying, well, I'm going to wait and see what happens with AI. You say that that's a dangerous mindset to take.
And in my opinion, certainly, like I said, it's the asymmetric match. I just like, for me personally, the way I see it, I mean, this is going to happen, period. Now, like I said, that may sound very doom and gloom to some people, and I can appreciate that. But it's better to be prepared and not need it than to not have prepared and all of a sudden find yourself without a job. So I'll wait and see mindset, I can understand. I mean, it's extremely uncomfortable to have to think about these things. But wait and see, what are you waiting for? I then asked. Right? Governments to intervene and slow things down. With the speed of AI, the way it's going right now, government usually is slow when it comes to innovations. They're even slower to follow up on this. What else are you waiting for? Oh, but one of the arguments I've heard is, yes, but AI will also create new jobs, which is a valid point, except that there was a study I read that said that 70% of these new jobs require a master's degree. 50% of these jobs require a PhD. So I'm pretty sure that most people working at a call center that get displaced because the call center has been replaced by AI don't have either. So again, yes, I'll wait for the new jobs to appear. I'm sure they will appear at some point, but they won't appear fast enough to be able to accommodate the amount of people that will be displaced by this evolution.
Do you think we're going to see spikes in unemployment across Europe?
I just this morning read an article in The Guardian that says that in the UK currently, they're already seeing these unemployments hit their economy in ways that they weren't expecting. And apparently I haven't read it in such detail as to memorize all the numbers exactly, but they're currently the worst hit economy in the world when it comes to AI job loss. So yes, we're going to be seeing spikes.
And, it raises the questions, is our government going to do to mitigate those spikes in unemployment versus what are they going to do to drive AI for good and does that starve innovation? It really is a conundrum.
It is absolutely. The problem is that, well, it's money driven, in my opinion. I mean, it makes sense for any kind of organization that needs to make a profit to say, okay, well, if I can cut down on staff by paying a 20 euros a month subscription to ChatGPT, well, I'm going to do that. While at the level of the government, when you say, will they be able to cope? Our systems currently, at least, I'm not sure about the UK system per se, but in Belgium, we have a social security net, let's say. We have unemployment. We have, how do you call it, health insurance, which isn't linked specifically to your job. The problem is that if the amount of people that get displaced gets enough, that network is just going to start fraying. It's not meant to cope with that amount of people. For example, in Belgium, same time ago when Renault closed their factories in Belgium, compared to closing the mines in the UK, for example. The system can handle that. It's not going to be happy with it. There are going to be rumblings in the system, but it can handle that. Eventually, things level out again. But that's for a small portion of your working population that gets jobless. Thus, there are jobs for them to move into fairly directly. There are other companies that will absorb some of these levers, or that will, because there's a larger gap within the market, will be able to expand to over time accommodate these. The problem is that the way I see it, these jobs are just gone. There are no replacement jobs. And so you're going to find yourself with a pool of people that get unemployed and unemployed for longer, because while there are some initiatives as to, like in Germany, for example, the Ausbildung, as in you work while you're being trained, you're getting paid and trained on the job in a certain factory, for example. It's an apprenticeship kind of system. That can also only manage to absorb so many people. So anybody that prepares beforehand will have that leg up on the people that will not have prepared. And from what I see, that's going to be the majority.
So what are you planning as your big pivot?
Well, my pivot, like I said, it's the AI handler bit. It's I'm working since, well, beginning of last year, when I started realizing that there are many companies that still find themselves in a bit of an AI paralysis kind of situation. They don't quite know how to handle it. They know that it's there, but they tend to not understand it well enough to know what the implications are. And I started work on, first of all, the training. I found my colleagues seemed to want to work with it, but they didn't know how to work with it in a way that, is responsible and careful, in the sense of you don't upload personal identifiable information onto ChatGPT, for example. You try not to upload your corporate secrets to ChatGPT. Those kinds of things, which to me seem logical, aren't necessary to everybody. So I started work on a training project for these kinds of people. My colleagues is how it started, but it developed into a training framework that can be implemented for any sector and any level of regulatory framing goals. And that's done out of control. I think that's what I'd say. It turned into a complete AI governance implementation kind of framework, but from a very practical point of view, because from what I've seen and what I've read in the process, is that many of these frameworks, like for example, ISO 42001, which is the AI management system framework from the ISO, is very theory heavy, but it doesn't really. I'm sorry. It doesn't really explain you how to actually get to where you want to be able to go and be, how do you call it, compliant with that frame. So I'm taking it from a more practical point of view as to how to actually implement this. And well, by now I've got the AI governance book ready. I've got the AI ethics book ready. I've worked on AI security, but that one, well, we all know AI is never going to be properly secure, or at least at the moment isn't. And from what I'm seeing, it doesn't look, I mean, if OpenAI itself is admitting, look, guys, this is never going to be secure. It's going to be difficult. And I also handle a part which is AI vendor governance, where I'm going like, okay, you're using AI and you're looking at how you are compliant with certain practices, as in, well, what you need to take care of to be the governance in your company. Are you sure your providers are equally prepared? Say, for example, you're subcontracting your AIs and your contractor changing its models, and all of a sudden your application starts completely changed the way it answers you. Are you protected in the case are you notified before your provider is even considering changing these models, for example? So that's my pivot piece.
And the book is not yet released, but thank you for sending an advance copy. Are you planning to get it out this year?
Well, since you're going to be releasing this one on Saturday, I'm hoping to be able to get it onto Amazon, the Kindle. I don't remember the name exactly. They have this version for Kindle for releasing ebooks on Kindle. I'm hoping to get it ready by then and to be able to give you a link beforehand. But I still have my day job, so it's a bit of a juggle.
Well, listen, congratulations on just taking the impetus to pivot in your own way, but also to share your ideas and your thoughts and your experiences with the rest of the world. I think if we've got something valuable to share, we absolutely should do it. So, Joost, thank you so much for joining me on AI6.
You're very welcome.
I will direct people to your book when the link is up, and also to yourself on LinkedIn where we met.
Great. Thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for having me.